if you, there we go. And if you guys don't mind while the other speakers are talking, just to make sure that you're on mute. At the very end, we will open up everyone to ask a question to our panelists if anyone is interested. So at that time, you can unmute yourselves. And I guess we'll go ahead and have my colleagues introduce themselves too.
I guess I can go ahead and jump in. Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Spencer Scruggs. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director in the Office of Accessibility Services.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Meister. I am the Event Coordinator with International Programs. I use she, her programs, or pronouns, and I'm super excited that y'all are all here for this program.
Hi everyone, I'm Zoe Crook and I also work with Hannah in the International Programs Office. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am the social media coordinator at International Programs. So we're really excited to get started, and we're going to start off with a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Zoe. All right, so this program today is about studying abroad with a disability. And so you might be thinking, where do I begin if I wanted to study abroad? So first and foremost, we think it's really important that you definitely discuss your travel plans with your healthcare provider or your therapist. You know, maybe make a list of questions that you may have, any questions that you think will come up as far as when you are abroad, and take those to your healthcare provider and definitely like make a specific appointment to discuss any questions or concerns that you may have, and bring those to your healthcare provider. Additionally, just make sure that you register with our office. So that's where you begin to have accommodations, is by registering with our office. I have the link to the application here, and we will also have this presentation on our website, the OAS website, where you can access all the links in this program also. So later on, you can go on here and fill out an application if you're not registered with our office yet. So when you fill out the application, you'll just put a few details about your disability, kind of how it affects you, what your symptoms are. And if you're studying abroad, definitely put that on there so we can prepare, and if needed, reach out to international programs and see how we can best accommodate you for when you are studying abroad. You'll also just submit documentation so we can review that and see kind of what your doctor recommends. And then that's also something you can have them put additional information in when you go and meet with them to discuss what the plan is for studying abroad with your disability. So we'll meet one-on-one with you after we review your documentation and your application, and we'll go over, you know, just general accommodations that we'll approve you for. And then if there's anything specific that you might need to be accommodated for while studying abroad, we work closely with international programs and some other resources that we might have on campus to make sure that you're going to be accommodated the best way we can accommodate you.
Awesome. We also, just like Natalie said, it's really great if you register with the Office of Accessibility Services, but then also discussing your availability of accommodations with international programs. So when you apply with us, you can report any needs that you have and just make sure that we're aware of that before your program so that we can discuss that with you and make sure that we're able to better assist you as well. And so an example of this might be talking to us about note-taking needs if you need somebody to take notes for you, or for example, if you have a medication that needs to be refrigerated and it needs to stay cold, then just letting us know that so that we can get you access to a fridge at all times and things like that. So these are the types of things that we can accommodate, and it's just great to have that open line of communication between you and our office at International Programs so that we can better accommodate you and help you have the best experience.
Hello, I am excited to talk about some of the benefits of studying abroad. So very generally, we love to talk about the opportunity to make lifelong friends, gain competencies in cross-cultural communication, as well as having enhanced educational experiences. And those enhanced educational experiences, I think, are one of the biggest benefits, especially for folks who are registered with OAS. I think that studying abroad allows such a unique learning opportunity that may actually be a great fit for you, that you may find that you appreciate more than a large lecture style classes in some cases. So our classes abroad are small class sizes. You definitely get to build a better relationship with your professor and your classmates, which can lead to better discussion, hopefully some easier note sharing and things like that if you are looking for that note-taking accommodation, as well as just hands-on and experiential learning. A lot of our classes are not in a classroom. You may spend a short time in the classroom and then go out into the city, go to a museum, get to go experience what you were learning about hands-on in a more experiential and interactive way. So a lot of students find that they really enjoyed that learning style while they're studying abroad. As for housing while you're abroad, all housing is provided through international programs if you do choose to participate in a study abroad program through our office. The housing looks a little bit different on every program. It depends on the location, depends on where you're headed, what the length of your program is, all sorts of different things. So again, communication between you and OAS or you and IP is really key to making sure that we are able to provide whatever accommodations we are able to. So in the past, for some students, this has looked like being given first floor apartments, maybe roll-in showers, different things like that. So it's just a matter of making sure that we know what you are looking for, and for us to be able to figure out how we are best able to accommodate that. The last thing I want to talk about is what is accessibility like in the country you are studying in, or countries you may choose to visit while you're abroad. Just things to consider are that, for example, elevators are not as common in Europe and in other countries beyond that. So just being aware of that, being aware that a lot of our study center locations and a lot of our study abroad locations, the cities still have a lot of cobblestone. Maybe the streets aren't as nicely paved or as similarly paved as they might be here, as you might experience in the States. Also keeping in mind that maybe healthcare and services may look different depending on where you were studying abroad. So the biggest thing there is just that we recommend that you do some research before you go abroad, whether before you select a program or if you've already selected a program and you are for sure going on that one, just make sure that you do some research into the location and maybe some of those locations for your excursions, just making sure that you can make sure that you are able to best navigate those no matter what your accommodations may be.
And some other things to consider is cultural attitudes towards visible and invisible disabilities. So, you know, here in the U.S., there's certain attitudes towards, you know, visible and invisible disabilities. I would like to think that, you know, hopefully we are pretty open-minded here in the U.S. They may not be as open-minded in other countries towards disabilities, or they may be more open-minded. So definitely do your research. There's some great information on the internet, and I also have some resources later on where you can read a little bit more into that. But do some research about cultural attitudes towards disability and, you know, statistics about different disabilities in other countries, so you can kind of see what other countries, what their view is of, you know, mental health as far as an invisible disability, and then for visible, for, you know, wheelchair accessibility and things like that. What medications or assistive technologies will you need while traveling abroad? So maybe for medications, you normally only get your medications once a month or once every 2 months, and you might need it for 3 months while studying abroad. Definitely discuss these things with your healthcare provider so you are more than prepared when studying abroad to make sure that you have the medications that you will need while over there. And then also assistive technologies. What kind of assistive technologies will you need to take with you while studying abroad? And also keeping in mind, if you're on an airplane or if you're on a tour bus or a trolley, things like that, are your assistive technologies easy to carry on with you? Is there a compact size of your assistive technology that you can bring with you while studying abroad? And lastly, are there certain environments or events that are triggering to you? So just being aware that you're in a different country, you might not be as comfortable there, especially if it's your first time studying abroad as you would be here in the US. So just thinking of different scenarios, different environments that you might be in, knowing, what is going to trigger you, what is something that might possibly trigger you, and prepare to have a plan just in case you are triggered while abroad. And support services while abroad. So as you all know, probably the last few months, we have gotten a lot more access to telehealth and telemental health. So that would be a great resource to you while studying abroad. Maybe when you meet with your healthcare provider, discuss, if I need to talk to you, or if you need to talk to your therapist, am I able to do a Zoom call with you? Am I able to call you? What's going to be the best form of communication if I need to get in contact with you? So that's a great option to have while studying abroad. And then also you have your access specialist that's going to be there to support you too. So if you have any issues with your accommodations at all while abroad, any questions, any concerns, any professors that have any specific questions about how to best provide you with your accommodations, your access specialist is always there to help you with any of those questions or concerns. And if we don't have the answer, we'll definitely get in touch with one of our many campus resources or off-campus resources to see how we can best support you.
Another thing that we want to talk about is that you will receive an international health insurance plan while you are abroad. So that's part of your international program's program fee that you'll pay. And so everyone that goes on an FSC study abroad program automatically is enrolled into this health insurance. It's pretty comprehensive health insurance. We definitely recommend that you read over the policy before you go abroad, which you can find on our website, and just see what sort of services you can get through that. But if you're abroad and you get sick, or if you need access to a healthcare provider, that can be arranged and provided for you while you're abroad as well. So we do have that health insurance we want you to be aware of. One thing that we like to note is that sometimes if you go to see a doctor, often you'll have to pay for the visit up front, and then you'll get reimbursed afterwards. So just plan on that and have that be part of your financial plan for going abroad as well. But we do offer that health insurance, and you can check more about that on our website.
And lastly, I just have a few resources here that you guys can utilize. And like I said, this will be on our website earlier, so you can easily access a few of these links. We have the Mapping Your Identities tool, which is an amazing tool that was created by international programs. And it not only goes over, your identity as a student with a disability, but it also goes over several other different identities that you might have and what that might look like while studying abroad. And then additionally, I have a few other resources here. Mobility International is a great worldwide website that just goes over mobility in all the countries around the world. You can find a lot of great information on there. And then additionally, I just put a few different stories. They're either articles or YouTube videos about individuals either studying abroad or visiting another country with a disability. And now we are going to have our panelists introduce themselves.
Great. Yeah, we'll start off with Maria, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria De Jesus. I currently go by they, them pronouns. I studied abroad in Panama, Chiriquí, doing the experimental biology lab and another course I'm forgetting at the moment. My major is biology and environmental science. I'm a double major, and currently I work as an undergraduate teaching assistant for BSc 1005L, and I'm currently working in an internship studying STEM equity and inclusion.
It looks like Max, you might be on mute.
I'm sorry for that.
No worries.
Hi, my name is Max. I have he, him pronouns. I have autism. I studied abroad in the summer of 2016 at the archaeology program in Italy. I graduated last spring, and I go to 2 springs ago now. Wow. I'm a 2L at FSU Law, and I currently work at a disability advocacy center. Thank you.
My name is Natalie. I go by she, her pronouns. I didn't study abroad actually, but I did Global Scholars, which is research, service learning, and an internship program in a holistic center in Cusco, Peru called Healing House. And I'm a psych major, and right now I'm really just settling down and doing my classes and probably gonna get a job at the hospital.
I think that's my turn then. Hi, I'm Olivia. I studied abroad in Florence last year for my freshman year. My major is psychology, and I have attention deficit.
Great. I think we're going to move into our questions now. If you want to start us off, Natalie. Natalie Jones, that is.
Sure. So this question is for Max and Bailey. If you don't mind answering first, Max, and then we'll have Bailey answer. How much time did you spend planning before studying abroad? Do you have any tips on how to make the planning process as smooth as possible?
I spent about 6 months planning just in terms of getting my medications in order. I take Vyvanse daily, which is a controlled substance. So pharmacists are not allowed by federal law to fill it more than 30 days in advance of the next prescription. So I worked with about 6 months with my doctor and my pharmacist to figure out a way in which I could have enough medication for I was gone for a month and a half, so I had to figure out a full way to get the month and a half at one time, or accumulate enough over the 6 months to be able to have the 50 pills that I needed, or 45 pills that I needed for the entire time I was abroad. So that was a very long process, and I did that by working with my doctor first, and how she submitted the prescriptions to the pharmacies and how she dated the prescriptions to the pharmacies. And then I went to the pharmacist so he can discuss with me how the insurance worked and how my insurance would pay for it and how much I had to pay for it out of pocket. And both those parties working together was really necessary for me to be able to access my medications.
Thank you so much for that. I think that that is really valuable information, and a lot of students encounter that as well with their doctors and pharmacists. So that's really helpful. Our next question is for Olivia, and we just want to know if you used any academic or other accommodations while you were abroad, and how was your experience utilizing those resources?
So I did use my accommodations. I especially used extra time and also a note taker. It was pretty easy using them, like with all of my classes, like easier than I thought it was going to be. I just had to go to the teachers myself and like tell them each individually what I wanted to use and what I didn't want to use. So I really had to initiate like that myself. But other than that, it was so easy, and the teachers were so helpful about it.
All right, and then the next question is for Maria. Did you experience any cultural differences regarding disability while abroad?
Well, my disability is not so much a physical one, it's manic depression. So I wouldn't say, since it's more of an invisible disability, I wouldn't say I face like ridiculous cultural differences regarding my disability. But I think for me, at the time that I was studying abroad, actually, I didn't know that that was my, what is that word? My diagnosis. And so having that medication and like having that therapy beforehand would have helped so much if I knew. But what I did do was talk to my professors every time I did feel like a little weird and, you know, uncomfortable. And so I think definitely using those resources like now before you go is really important, especially if you are still in the first stages of your disorder. So thank
Thank you so much. Our next question is for Natalie, and we want to know what are the pros and cons of studying abroad with a disability, and how did your disability both inform and enrich your experience while you were abroad?
Okay, so I also have like an invisible disability. I have chronic anxiety, so I would have like panic attacks and stuff like that. And also like kind of like it would affect my eating. So going abroad, like it like one of the pros I think was like meeting new people and like being able to relate to them and being able to like talk about your experiences, and you know it kind of gave you like a sense of community, at least where I was. It was also like literally like a community you know, where I was interning. So I mean also the context where I was also affected it. But yeah, I mean, everyone was just, you know, you kind of like learn that people like actually care, even if they're complete strangers from all across the world. Yeah, because I was interacting. That's another pro, that you could interact with not only like the culture that is in that country that you went, but with many other cultures, as there's a bunch of tourists and people that also travel. Or other students. I mean, I didn't study abroad, so I was like interning alone. So that's like for me, like I was like without any FSU students or really anyone my age. So yeah, like the main pro I think is like growing out of your comfort zone, which is like, you know, I think like especially for people who have, you know, disabilities and stuff, I think it's a really important thing to know that you can do, because you know sometimes you feel limited. um and then cons, you know, like sometimes you do feel like isolated and alone, but you can do things to like ground yourself and, you know, like tell yourself, you know, just be like present in that moment and be like, okay, like, you know, I'm here, I'm doing this, you know, I'm here for a reason, like, you know, it's fine, like I can deal with this feeling of loneliness or this feeling of like homesickness, or, you know, missing your family. And, you know, I lived over there for 4 months, so I didn't even have any phone service. So it was really hard for me to even communicate with anyone. So I think that's one of like the main cons. But you know, I think in the end it also makes you stronger. And then you know, also like it's harder to access like services and healthcare. Like, you know, talking to my counselor was harder. You know, getting emails in, the Wi-Fi was super slow. So like, you know, like practical stuff like that too. And then I think that, you know, having like the anxiety and stuff, like, because I had to medically drop like my semester before I went to Peru, so because I was like in the hospital and stuff, and so like still going to Peru and doing that, and you know, helping me like really learn how to cope essentially like completely alone, and like especially with no treatment, I found like new ways to like just calm down and, you know, really have that time to myself. So yeah, I think that's what I have.
Thank you, Natalie.
No problem.
Maria, how did your study abroad experience change your perspective or influence your future, personally, professionally, or otherwise?
This is a good question because for me, that trip to Panama was amazing. I think personally for me, I was born in the Dominican Republic, and so Panama, being in the Caribbean, was very similar to my home. So I was like, I haven't been to my home in like 5 years, not including the pandemic. And so going to Panama and being able to see, again, like people who look more like me, being able to see a culture very similar to my own was like so, I think, fulfilling because I hadn't been home in such a long time. Um, Professionally, I really liked the way my course was structured because we had 2 professors and 10 students. And so you had a lot of one-on-one time with professors and you really got to know like how they got to where they were. Like there was a lot more personal time with the professors. It wasn't necessarily just like science, you know, STEM. Like it was also like, you know, I lived in Chicago when I was in graduate school, and like I didn't know about like racial barriers there for the people in Chicago. Like that was what one of my professors talked to me about. But professionally, I think overall, like it just really showed me that like it just reaffirmed how much I love science because I got to be in the field, in the actual nature that a lot of classes at FSU kind of don't let you see, because you're in these huge classrooms with like 200, 300 people. And so you don't get to experience the outdoors. And I didn't even know that for scientists, there's this thing called field season, which is kind of on pause right now. But in field season, most scientists go in the summer and they go to like a tropical area or like just a different environment, and they study an animal or a species one-on-one. And that's like really beautiful to me. So I think it was really useful for me.
Thank you so much. I love that perspective. Our next question is for Max, and then we'll go over to Olivia. And so this question is, what advice would you give to students planning to travel or study abroad?
As new things overwhelm me sometimes, especially things I'm unfamiliar with, especially things in a different language that I'm not comfortable with. So I went to Italy. I was not very familiar with Italian, and I'm not very familiar with public transport in general, coming from Florida, which doesn't use a lot of it. So trains really scared me. So something I did was I took virtual tours of the train stations I knew I would be going to. I practiced on how the ticket machines would work, so I didn't have to worry about translating it. It ended up becoming just like a practice rehearse skill, more than something I had to learn on the fly. And I learned how the train stations work, so I wouldn't be running around there in busy places. And that's sort of the thing I did with, that's the most salient example of when I did the preparation, but I did that with everything. I did that with hotels, because checking into a hotel is different in different countries. There's different rules. And I sort of asked for recommendations of places to eat before I got there. I didn't plan out like every minute of my trip, but on my busy travel days, I tried to plan out more so I wouldn't be overwhelmed when I got somewhere, or lost or confused when I got somewhere. And I tried to take as much things that could, like someone was saying earlier, try to take the triggering factors out of the equation before they become a problem. So I tried to familiarize myself with the culture and with how things worked before I got there, and had to be immersed in it all at once, so I could actually enjoy my time rather than being overwhelmed. Thank you.
Awesome. Now we'll hear Olivia, from your perspective of what advice would you give students planning to travel or go abroad?
So my main advice would be you need to advocate for yourself. The teachers are there. So if you're struggling, what can we do about it? They want you to succeed. So if you need extra time on a test and you know that test is coming up, email them a week in advance, telling them, hey, I'm planning on using this extra time. It's really hard for them if you come to them day of, like, to ask for accommodation. They need to also prepare for that. So really, schedule will help a lot.
Thank you, Olivia. So the next question is for Natalie. What did you learn about yourself from your study abroad experience?
Okay, so I think the main thing I learned is that, like, you honestly, like, don't really need anything but like the wanting to like get better and like take care of yourself, and like just that is like enough for you to like be alone in a whole other country and like cope and like deal with whatever you're going through, and like whatever stuff comes up too. Like, you know, kind of like, you know, being like alone over there kind of forces you to practice self-care. And you know, I learned also like a lot of the anxiety issues like I was having, like it was triggered by like being around a lot of people, or like, you know, especially like in school and like the library and stuff, or like whether it was outside of school, like, you know, I learned like finally like having all that time to myself, it was like I learned that like a lot of the anxiety issues are like triggered by like what I'm feeling like just around me. And you know, I felt much more calm, and like I was able to you know, recognize like those triggers and prevent like the anxiety attacks, and be able to like eat more, and you know, just being there at that moment like now. Yeah, I think that's really the main thing I learned.
Awesome, thank you so much. It looks like also Bailey is here now. I saw that they were having some technical difficulties. So Bailey, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then maybe we can ask you one or two of the questions if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the patience, everyone. I'm Bailey. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a recent graduate from FSU. I got my bachelor's in studio art, and I actually studied at the London Study Center when I was a junior. And right now I'm planning for grad school in Wales. So I'm kind of both a veteran and also right in the middle of things. So I'd like to use that to hopefully share some of my experience and give some tips. So yeah.
Wonderful. Because you're going to Wales to do a grad program, do you want to just talk a little bit about how you are planning for that, like how much time you're spending planning before you're going abroad, and if you have any tips to make that planning process as smooth as possible?
Right. So yeah, there's obviously been a lot of planning involved, a bit more than I anticipated with the whole global pandemic going on. It's been very interesting figuring out how to get a visa and how to find like a place to do biometrics, planning around having to do a quarantine period when I get there. So I think that my main piece of advice regarding all this is really, I've already heard this from some folks, but absolutely access the resources that you have available to you. You've got, you know, your international programs at FSU, and if you're doing like me, going to a different university over in a different country, research what they have, look at what their international programs are, look at what their disability services are. There are a bunch of people there who are prepared to help students through all this, and they've just been extremely helpful for me in figuring out the study abroad progress and like figuring out all this with how confusing and kind of unpredictable this time is. So absolutely use the resources that you've got available to you. It's very helpful.
Wonderful. And then we also wanted to ask you, how did your study abroad experience change your perspective or influence your future, either personally, professionally, or otherwise? I know you said you're going to Wales for grad school, so maybe that's how.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm autistic, and I've always struggled with a lot of issues with confidence. I've always struggled with executive dysfunction, social functioning, a lot of things that kind of built up to make me feel like I really couldn't be very independent. But by actually going to London, even if it was just for a month when I went, it helped me just to like realize that I'm capable of so much more than I thought I was. And it also taught me to like understand my own limitations and my own strengths. Things like the people I was sharing a flat with, they would, you know, we'd be doing our classes in the morning and then go on excursions in the afternoon around the town, and they would spend most of the day after that just like going to pubs and, you know, hanging out, visiting shops. And I was like, I just had to lay in my room for a bit. But I kind of realized, I was like, you know, this is something that at the time I was like, oh, they're doing all these cool things. But I was also realizing, like, because I've done this, I have the energy to actually enjoy what I'm doing. And so as a whole, it taught me some small things about myself and about taking care of myself, self-care. And also just it gave me confidence. I don't think I would have been able to decide to go to Wales for a year, for grad school, no less, if I hadn't done that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And now we just want to hear from every panelist. So we want to hear what was everyone's favorite part of studying abroad. So we'll start off sort of in the same order we went in before, starting off with Maria.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the best part of studying abroad outside of just like being in the Panamanian continent was the people. I also did a program like consecutively with, so I studied abroad in Panama, and then literally not even a week later, I studied abroad. Well, I studied in a different state in California. And so both of those programs were pretty rigorous. And so having those people to help balance out like the rigor and the stress, because like this was a class, it wasn't like just, only fun. They actually had us doing a lot of stuff. And so I think like having those little moments with people where you would like talk about your background and your shared experiences and things like that. And also just getting to know your professors in like a much calmer or like personable, I'd say, level is really cool, because then it kind of takes away this barrier that I think I had internalized in the past of like, they're a professor, you can't talk to them about more personal things, you can't talk to them about like why you get excited about what you're studying and things like that. Like now I'm like, I wouldn't say we're on the same level. They have a PhD, I don't, but I would say like I became more comfortable like approaching my professors, and that's like really important when you have a disability, especially at FSU, because some professors are very accommodating and like they get the email from Natalie and that's it, you're good. But other professors, you really have to talk to them, because if they don't look at that email, they literally are like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. So really important to like learn to communicate with professors in a way that benefits you and meets your needs, essentially.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And now we'll pose the same question to Max. What was your favorite part of studying abroad?
My study abroad had nothing to do with my major. It had nothing to do with my life goals. It's kind of the opposite of Maria there. And it was, one of them was actually on campus. I was taking at least 15 to 16 credit hours, usually 18. So this was the opposite for me. This was a chance to learn more about myself, learn more about a culture without having as rigorous a program. Because the program was rigorous. It was excavating things outside all day, every day, but it didn't have the same academic pressures that I'm used to. So it was a different type of pressure, and it was nice to explore how I found myself in that situation. And the chance to travel on weekends is just unbeatable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to Natalie. Could you tell us what was your favorite part of studying abroad?
I think my favorite part was honestly, like, well, one, like being able to like be in a community and like with people from all over the world, and helping out, like learning. Like I was like in a place that was doing like, they did like yoga, like Reiki. They had like a garden there. It was like a vegetarian kitchen. It was amazing. Like I was literally, like my view was like I was literally looking at like a pink purple sky with mountains every day, and right around the corner was like the most amazing crepe place in my life. And so yeah, just like having the time to really like not like really like reflect and be with myself, and especially in that rough time, like learn how to like cope with literally everything, and like understand like why it was all happening, because I came back with such, those 4 months, like I came back with such like a clear mind. Like that was my first time going abroad. Like I got a grant to get like my passport and my flight and everything to go. So Global Scholars, 10 out of 10 recommend. And yeah, so yeah, just being with myself in the mountains and eating really good food in the bakeries. And there was alpacas and guinea pigs, and I have pet guinea pigs, but they eat the guinea pigs over there, so that was like, but yeah, it's okay. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now we'll pass it over to Olivia. What was your favorite part of studying abroad?
My favorite part was definitely the people. I love being able to travel to so many different countries, and just meet like the people there, because I wanted to see like what kind of stereotypes were right, what was wrong, and just get to know the cultures, because it's so much different over there. And being in Italy was so incredible because, especially in Florence, they embrace the students who come abroad. And as long as you're really respectful of them and their culture, they'll be respectful of you and welcoming. And I also loved just being able to have that freedom and know that I can go to Germany this weekend and I can plan that and execute the trip by myself. Just to know that I'm able to do that, especially with a disability, was very it built up my confidence in a really cool way that I don't think I would have been able to do somewhere else other than being abroad. So those were my favorite parts. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then to finish us up, we'll have Bailey, if you could answer, what was your favorite part of studying abroad?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I definitely think I'm gonna have to say my favorite parts were probably the moments that I just had kind of on my own, where I really just formed these really strong memories that I've carried with me from that time. Just for me, I have a few moments that just stand out. Just I remember going to Hampstead Heath on a Saturday, and it was sweltering and I'd forgotten to bring water, but I still remember standing up on the hill and seeing on one side it was just picturesque. You might as well be in the middle of the countryside, just trees and fields. And then you look on your other side and you can see in the distance the whole city of London. And just moments like that, or we had, shush, sorry, there's a dog here. We went to Edinburgh for a weekend as part of my program, and just walking on the hill in the rain, just stopping by to grab a soup at a restaurant. I stayed an extra week and went to Wales with my grandma, who is Welsh, and her sister. And I have memories from that trip that wasn't even part of the stay that has honestly, I've been wanting to go back to Wales since, and that was a big part in my decision to study in Wales. So just the fact is, when you go somewhere and you take the time to just be, even just have your own time, visit a park, explore your town or city, on your own. Often it's when you do things like that you're going to form the memories that are going to stick with you. And yeah, that's absolutely been my favorite part. I still, when I'm having a rough time, I just go back to those memories. I'm like, yeah, I did that. That was awesome. So yeah, that's definitely stuck with me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. We do have a few minutes, about 10 minutes or so, to have some questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions, you can either sort of use the raise your hand feature, and then you can unmute yourself and ask the question. But just keep in mind that if you do that, you will be recorded on this video. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just send us a chat, either to everyone, or you can send it directly to Hannah to send those questions along to her. So we'll wait and see if we have any questions here coming in for our panelists. Feel free to type them in the chat. All right, it looks like we do have one question. What advice, and this can just be for anyone to answer on the panel that feels comfortable, but what advice do you have for someone who might be concerned about certain triggers, such as situational, environmental, sensory, or other sort of triggers while studying abroad?
I can answer if no one else has an answer for it. Because I have some of those issues too, triggers. To be really open and honest with not only your teachers, but the other staff is really important, especially if you're going on mini trips with the school, just letting them know so they can tell you if like, oh yeah, we will be doing something like that, or we will see something like that. They're able to like accommodate you and you can make the decision. But to know that like you have those triggers and to just prepare yourself for them. So like what Max was saying earlier, maybe trying to expose yourself for like areas of voice or problems, so it's not here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And could I hop on for a second?
Yes, please.
Yep. I just want to hop on and say, yeah, just do your research before you go somewhere. If you know there might be environmental triggers that you can prepare for them. Do the little bit of research that you do on the front hand will make the backhand so much more enjoyable. Front end and back end so much more enjoyable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that advice, Olivia and Max. Yeah, Natalie, if you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, I think, yeah, like prevention is a really big thing, but I think like in the case that there's still unexpected trigger that comes up, I think the most important thing is like to just, be in that present moment and like tell yourself, like I'm here now, I'm dealing with it and it's fine, like this is gonna pass. And like I think like one thing that like my counselor told me, for example, is like using like grounding techniques. So like using like all your senses. So like seeing, like saying like what you see, like what you feel, what you smell, and like if it's like sensory triggers, maybe that's not a good situation. But yeah, and then also breathing techniques. Like breathing is like everything, and water or tea. We're just getting a good donut. All right, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, it looks like we have one more question as well about just if anyone has any advice about making friends or building relationships while abroad.
I can answer this one. Or Bailey, you can go first.
Okay, sorry. So this is something that I actually have consciously decided I need to be better at. And so in my experience, a really good way to get started is to see, one, if you're going to be sharing a living space, like if you have a flat or another just like shared student living, it really helps to just get to know who you're rooming with, maybe share meals. Food is a really good way to bond in my experience. And two, see if you're going to a school that's over there, there might be clubs or other things you get involved with. I advise just like see what you can find. There are students that you're going to share an experience with, even if it's just, the people you're traveling with, finding other international students. You'll at the very least bond over the fact that you're in a new culture and a new place. And it really does, it helps. And also maybe like have a chat or a group me or something. I still keep in contact with the folks I shared a flat with when I went to London. So yeah, those are a few pointers. I'm sure Maria, you can also get some good advice too.
Yeah, I think like, especially for people who like are more introverted and have like a harder time just like reaching out and stuff, I think the best thing is to just like talk to somebody about something that's happening in class, like, bond with someone when you're already doing group work, because then at least you're like, okay, I already have to talk to them. And so your body's automatically like, okay, we're gonna have to talk, so just get over it type of thing. But not, okay, that sounds mean, not get over it, but you know what I mean? It'll help you push yourself a little bit. I think for me, what's always worked is just like asking people questions that I'm curious about, but I'm also just a very curious person. So like, I'll be like, oh, like, why did you guys choose to, like, think of like icebreaker type questions. Like, why did you guys choose to go on this trip? Like, I came for this reason. So I'm always curious to know like why other people are doing it. So I think just like asking questions and like, to an extent, you have to, I think, push yourself out of those comfort zones in order to really build new connections and build new friendships. But yeah, there's also smaller ways like with group projects and just like with the classroom setting to like talk to people without feeling like I'm asking too many questions or I'm like bothering them or something like that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to say thank you again to all of our panelists. We have enjoyed so much hearing from all of you and about your experiences. We are going to wrap it up just for the sake of everyone's time, but we did want to say that you can follow both OAS and FSU International Programs on social media for more updates. You can visit our websites. That's at FSU OAS or at FSUIP on social media. So thank you again for everyone for joining us. Have a good day.